being a part of this segment of Kiwanis Amplify Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion module. Today, we're going to focus on microaggressions. My name is Quadaeus McCahern, and I am so excited to be a part of this experience with you all today. I am a social justice and anti-racism educator, and I graduated from the University of North Carolina with my bachelor's degree in psychology, minors in social economic justice and education, and I'm also a graduate student at Texas State University right now. I like to begin all of my segments, presentations with the things I love, because I think that's a huge part of me. So I love hot lemon pepper wings. I love Gold Peak sweet tea. I love hip hop music. I also proclaim myself a sneakerhead, so I love Air Force Ones, classic whites, and any Jordan 11s I think are beautiful. And then lastly, I love Chipotle burrito bowls. Chipotle is my life. So let's take a step forward and talk about some of the acknowledgments that I want to make sure that I make before we get into this segment. So I identify as a Black, able-bodied, cisgendered, heterosexual male. I will not speak to a marginalized experience that I do not hold, but I will speak to the harm that privileged identities that I hold cause. Even if you know all the information in this presentation, I hope you're able to take away new ways to introduce and interact with this topic. Even if you leave this presentation, which I don't think you will, thinking that I knew all that information, I hope you have new ways to bring it about, and also ways to introduce it to your peers, your colleagues, your students, your friends, to talk about this really important topic. So let's jump right into this. And we're going to talk about what power is, what privilege is, and what they are not, because I believe it's really important for us to have this foundation before we start going into the conversation of microaggressions, because you'll see how they feed into their existence. So power is all about the access to resources that one has. And power is very specific in this way, I believe, because the access to resources that enhances one's chances of getting what one needs in order to lead a comfortable, safe, productive life. And then privilege is the advantage or immunity granted to or enjoyed by one societal group beyond common advantage of all other groups. So the privilege is the having an unearned advantage to the access to or resources, or privilege is the unearned access to power. Hopefully that makes sense. So oppression is the result of the use of institutional privilege and power. So when these two entities are used together, that's whenever we see oppression occur, because one group has more power than other societal groups. Now, what is privilege and what is it not? Because a lot of times we will continue to hear the word privilege and it's used as a blanket statement or it's said whenever it's out of context. So let's really talk about what this privilege word means. So having privilege doesn't mean you're a bad person. Privilege is not about individuals being bad people, but about entire systems that favor some groups and put down others. Having privilege doesn't mean that you haven't experienced oppression in other ways. This is how we talk about intersectionality, or the concept of intersectionality, and this lens that I can look at my life through as a Black male. I understand that I have privilege as a male, as a cisgender male especially, and understanding that that privilege exists because of my identification as a cisgender male. But I also need to understand that I am oppressed in ways because of the color of my skin. I'm Black. And it's very important to understand that you can have privilege and also experience oppression. And that intersectional lens gives us a look into what that looks like and how that impacts our daily lives. So having privilege doesn't mean that you didn't work hard or that you should feel bad about your good fortune. Having privilege means a lot of people can't access what you have, no matter how hard they work. Having privilege means that there are marginalized individuals that no matter how hard they work, no matter how much they do, no matter how many degrees they have, no matter how much education they get, they will not be able to access some things that you can simply because of the identities that you hold. They won't be able to reach that level of comfortability that you have simply because of the identities that they hold. Lastly, and most importantly, having privilege doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about it. there is always something you can do about it with your privilege. I would say that it's the opposite. Having privilege means that you can do something about it. Having privilege means that you can put something on the line. Having privilege means that you can speak up in spaces that a person with a marginalized identity, it may be unsafe for them to do so. So the question is, what are you willing to do with the privilege that you have to make sure that marginalized people or individuals with marginalized identities feel safe in the spaces that you occupy and hold power? So this is going to lead perfectly into our conversation about microaggressions, because microaggressions are behaviors that are subtle and often express a prejudiced attitude towards a member of a marginalized group. Oftentimes we see microaggressions stem from privilege and power in a space. Whenever individuals in a space have more power and more privilege, then we tend to see these slight or unconscious, unintentional statements that create disconnects in the room that also are disrespectful and harmful and oppressive to individuals of marginalized identities. So I like to give this pen example that I think really depicts what microaggressions look like. So imagine you're going to work, you're going to an organization meeting, you're going anywhere, and it's your first time going into this space. And as soon as you walk in, you sit down at your desk, you sit down in the room, and somebody accidentally pricks you with a ballpoint pen. So it's the first time it happened. They may have left a mark on you. It may have broken a little skin. It may have just hurt. But you say, it's the first time, I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm sure they didn't mean to. It's fine. Now, think about this. If you would continue to experience these accidental pricks with a ballpoint pen over day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and you're like, okay, I'm beat up, I'm bruised, I have ballpoint pen marks all over me. Nobody seems to say anything. I'm just going to speak up. So the next time somebody pricks you, you stand up, you say, you just pricked me with a ballpoint pen. And that person says, whoa, you've never said anything about that before. You're saying that you're pricked, you're saying that you're marked up. You never said anything about that. I didn't even mean to. It shouldn't have hurt. I didn't know that happened. How invalidating would that feel, as you can feel the pain in your body? You can feel being drained from being pricked with a ballpoint pen consistently. This is how microaggressions affect individuals with marginalized identities. Day after day, week after week, you get pricked. And maybe the first couple of times you don't feel like you need to say anything, you don't want to say anything because you don't want to start up a stir or anything. But over time, you continually get pricked with this ballpoint pen. You continually hear microaggressions. You continually hear people invalidating your experience, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And over time, it wears you down. It sucks. And it really pushes individuals with marginalized identities out of the space. It pushes them out of comfortability. It pushes them out of feeling like they can be a part of a space. And that's not what we want our organizations to look like. So let's jump into this activity. So you have a supplemental handout, and it basically details out the 4 questions that I'm going to ask in this section. So if you're in a group, then feel free to pause the video as I go through the questions and say your answers out loud, giving one word. And if you are watching this by yourself, then feel free to write on the supplemental handout and write those emotions or those actions that you feel as we go through these questions. So the first question, I want you to think about a time where you felt unincluded or othered in a space or a group. What are some emotions or things that you felt? So think about a time where you were othered or unincluded in a group. I want you to say out loud or write down one word emotions or feelings that you felt when you're in that space. Feel free to pause the video for a second. All right. So now think about a time where you felt included in a space or a group. What are some emotions or things that you felt? I want you to say these out loud in your group or write them down on your paper. Feel free to pause the video. All right. Now think back to that first time, that time where you felt unincluded in that group or othered in that space. What are some actions that you made? How did you exist in that space? How did you interact in that space? What was your energy like? I want you to think about that and then give actions of how you felt. All right. So now we're going to think back to that time where we felt included, we felt loved, we felt covered, we felt supported. What are some actions that correlated with those? How did you exist in that space? How did you exist in that group? Feel free to pause the video. Awesome. So now that we've done that activity, I want to give you a few takeaways that I want to make sure that you leave this activity with, because I think it's a really powerful activity. So one takeaway is that our actions impact others independent of intent. Our intentions do not prevail over the impact of our actions towards other people. Our actions, our impact on those individuals will always take precedent. Developing your DEI competency and focusing on social justice leads your focus to how are my actions going to impact individuals? How are my policies going to impact individuals? How are my rules going to impact individuals? Less of what am I intending to do, because that's much less important. You want to be thinking about how are your actions impacting others. And that's whenever we're thinking about microaggressions, we have to understand that even if the statements or the actions are intended to be positive in your eyes, if they are received in a negative light or in an oppressive light or in a disrespected light in the eyes of another individual that you're trying to talk to or correlate with, then that impact is more important than the intention that you had in the statement. So my next takeaway is that there is a link between feelings of exclusion and the behaviors that are associated with that, and inclusion and the behaviors that are associated with that. Whenever you feel excluded from a space, you feel dejected, you feel like you don't belong, the behaviors are that you're going to pull yourself away. You're going to not give yourself that much energy in that space. You're going to protect yourself. You're going to guard yourself. You might deject yourself from the group altogether. But when you feel included, you will give energy to that space. You will give time to that organization. You'll give your love, your energy. You'll give your all to that group where you feel included. And lastly, the negative experience is brought up. So the negative experience that you think about when you felt othered, you felt unincluded. These are often the daily experiences of marginalized people. And this is a very important note to make, because whenever we're talking about this as an activity, I want us to be realizing that marginalized people experience these very real things on a consistent basis. Microaggressions are happening on a daily basis for some people. So what are we doing to make sure that our spaces are microaggression free? What are we doing to make sure that our organizations are as inclusive and equitable as possible? So I want to leave you with this story. This is me from about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, at my alma mater, UNC. I was a sophomore in college, and I was the self-proclaimed social justice advocate. I thought I knew everything. I thought that nothing could touch me. I thought that I was fighting for the people. And I remember one day, this is in the student union at UNC, and there were a group of people that walked up to me, and me and a nice person said, "Hey guys," not thinking anything of it. And one individual in the group, they said, "Who are you talking to?" And I was thrown off by that, of course. And they said that there's only one guy in this group. I mean, who are you talking to? You should really be focused on recognizing people's pronouns or using gender inclusive language. And I was thrown back. I said, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm a good person. I'm a nice person. I am an advocate. I am good. I am a good person. There's so many other people to focus on, so many other issues. Why are you correcting me? And this is a moment where I had to stop and reflect, because it was a mistake on my part. And in that moment, I should receive that critical feedback. Understand that that person isn't attacking me. That person isn't trying to put me down. That person is trying to protect the humanity and the identities of the people in their group. That person was doing the right thing. And my message to you today is that you will mess up, but continue to grow. Take feedback. Take it to heart and understand, how can I move forward and be more inclusive and supporting more people? Do your self-education, read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos, bring in social justice and anti-racism educators to continue to inform and to teach on how can I make sure that my space is inclusive and equitable, because it's so important for us moving forward to make sure that we are taking our spaces, moving from listening and learning to action and change, and understanding that we need to continue to learn. We need to continue to be the best we can to create equitable and inclusive spaces for marginalized people in the organizations and spaces that we occupy. So I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today in this virtual fashion. Please follow me on social media. And then also, if you have questions, concerns, inquiries, or just want to have a conversation, feel free to email me and we can set up a time to talk. So I want to thank you so much to Kiwanis and to Kiwanis Amplify for this opportunity. And thank you.